You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension, a dimension of sound,
whose boundaries are only that of the imagination.
It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, between the pit of one's fears and the summit of one's knowledge. You are now traveling through a dimension of imagination.
Ni hao, que pasa, guten tag, and what's up, my nuclei from another hemisphere? It's your girl, Madam Kira, with my first video. If you've used the internet in the last decade, chances are that BuzzFeed has asked you a lot of questions over the years. Which cupcake matches your personality? What type of friend are you? Can we guess your social security number based off of what breed of dog you like? The last one was made up, by the way. You have been asked so many questions, it might be hard to come up with a question you haven't heard. Luckily for you, I have one right here, and it's totally not a weird question at all. What's your favorite brain part? You know why this isn't such a weird question? Because I'm a psychology major? Yes, and because there is a fifth dimension beyond that which is known to man. A dimension of thoughts, a dimension of personality. It is a dimension as vast as my head and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between psychology and biology, between science and philosophy, and it lies between the pit of my grades and the summit of my knowledge. This is the psychology zone. If you don't know what your favorite brain part is, I'll be happy to tell you mine. It's the basal gang. I meant to say basal ganglia. What is a basal ganglia, you might ask? Well, I think you mean what are the basal ganglia? Here's a picture. They're a group of nuclei who receive input from the cortex and can help control voluntary movements, procedural learning, cognition, and emotion. The basal ganglia include the caudate nucleus, putamen, globus pallidus, subthalamic nucleus, and nucleus accumbens. Substantia nigra because the substance appears to be black. In short, the basal ganglia works together to select and enable the execution of motor procedures. No, not that kind of execution. They communicate with each other via pathways. Neurons pass on information to each other via synapse, where chemicals are sent from the presynaptic to the postsynaptic neuron. The chemicals are called neurotransmitters, and there are a few different ones. GABA, for example, is an inhibitory neuron that turns off the postsynaptic neuron. At this point, you might be asking, what is the basal gang talking about? The basal gang has two goals, moving and not moving. Starting movement occurs in the direct pathway, while stopping movement occurs in the indirect pathway. Here we meet the direct path. When we want to move, we send an excitatory message to the motor cortex. This excitatory neuron goes to the striatum, and then the striatum then synapses with the inhibitory neuron and takes it to the globus pallidus internal. The globus pallidus is always holding thalamus down by sending inhibitory neurons, usually. When globus pallidus is asleep, however, thalamus can get down with the motor cortex by sending excitatory messages, if you know what I mean. The motor cortex then sends excitatory neurons to the muscles. The substantia nigra sends dopamine to the inhibitory neurons that are on their way to globus pallidus, resulting in keeping the globus pallidus internal from interrupting all of this excitement. Who's exciting substantia nigra, though? The subthalamic nucleus. They've been communicating back and forth through inhibitory neurons this whole time. When substantia nigra does not feel like talking to the subthalamus, the dopamine supply stops and muscle movement goes down like the rating of the season 9 finale of The Walking Dead. Ahem. All in all, the direct pathway is how the basal gang tells the muscles what to do. But we also need to know what not to do. This is where the indirect pathway comes in. The basal ganglia needed to find a way to control thalamus, the loose cannon of the gang, so to speak. All messages go through thalamus, and well, it's not the best at behaving itself with its reactions to these messages. It would do anything to excite the motor cortex, and if left unchecked, all of the muscles would move around and nothing would ever get done. So globus pallidus, the big bubba of the basal gang, is the only one who can get thalamus in line by sending inhibitory messages. Here's the catch. Humans are humans because of our ability to change. We need some flexibility. Globus pallidus's control of the thalamus. You see, even though thalamus is a loose cannon, he's a quick loose cannon. When we need to make a quick movement, a change of course, the thalamus may need to send more messages to the motor cortex. That's the loophole for thalamus, yay. And that keeps us from doing stuff like splashing coffee on your new laptop or running into a brick wall when it magically appears. In humans, the basal ganglia also form and use unconscious memories. The group of nuclei are implicated in many disorders such as ADHD, OCD, Parkinson's, and Huntington's disease. The basal ganglia is my favorite brain part because it reminds me of my really big, really unique family. Communication in a family is important for keeping us happy and on the same page, just like the basal ganglia. Mishaps can happen, illness can strike, but a family is always a family. In the psychology zone. What's your favorite brain part? Comment down below.